My name is Ann Kaskinen, and I am the K-12 Engagement Specialist for the Midwest Collaborative for Library Services. And, you know, I have to ask Laura, I apologize for stopping right now, but is there a lot of feedback? Are you hearing bad feedback from me, from my end? Not at all? Okay. All of a sudden I have school buses outside going crazy and it feels really loud. And so I apologize for that. But let me get back. My name is Ann, and I work for the Midwest Collaborative for Library Services. We are a nonprofit that serve all libraries in Michigan and Indiana. And we're probably best known for our strategic planning with public libraries and academic institutions, as well as group purchasing. We do a lot of that for both public libraries and academics. So we also have 7 of us at MCLS that support the Michigan Electronic Library. And that is my role with MCLS, to go around and work with teachers on how to utilize the different databases, EResources that we have at MeL, and how they can help you with your instruction. So today we're going to be looking at the secondary resources, 6 through 12. We will not be hitting on every single resource today, but because we have 90, but we'll be looking at about 5 of them that hopefully can really support the secondary teachers, as well as I'll be mentioning several others, but we're going to look more in depth at those. So why would you want to access the resources in MeL? First and foremost, to support your curriculum, K-12. Information literacy, not only do we have resources that speak specifically to information literacy, but when we consider that at the end of 2nd grade, our students are expected to know the difference between a primary and secondary source. We've started to make sure that all of our databases for the early learners also have simple citation so that they can get an idea of where information is coming from. And then the essential instructional practices and literacy. Every time I look at the essentials, I see new ways that really the resources that we have in MeL can support those. Spent a lot of time talking about the early essentials, essentials 2, 3, 5, and 8 for our K-3 learners, but also the 6, 12 instructional practices were published at the end of last summer, and they speak to a lot of different strategies that we can help support. First and foremost, even at 6th grade, the expectation in the essentials is that students will be able to navigate a database. So we want to make sure that they are prepared for that. And of course, the next level, post-secondary, it will be absolutely vital that they know how to utilize a resource online. The Michigan Integrated Technology Competencies for Students has 7 strands. One of them is the Knowledge Constructor strand, and we definitely have resources that can help build in that area. And finally, we have a resource that we're going to look at today called the Learning Express Library that can really help with career, college, and military preparation. So those are the reasons that we would want to engage with MeL at the K-12, but especially at the secondary level, we really need to consider database literacy. And what I mean by that when I say it is that all of our students who will engage academically after they leave high school will be basically forced to use databases for the research that they're doing in these colleges. So I looked at some that are near you. I started with the Wayne County Community College District, and I'm going to go there first. And if I look to see how databases are organized on their page, I can see that these are electronic tools that can be used in that community college. So we have general databases here. And when I look at the list of databases, the 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7, 8, and 9 are all databases from the Michigan Electronic Library. And that is pretty typical. Something that you will see in most of our community colleges throughout the state is that they're relying heavily on the resources in MeL for their own use. And that was exactly the intention of the Michigan Electronic Library from the beginning, was to minimize individual purchases by schools and colleges and public libraries so that we could all share these resources. So if I go back and look at something like Eastern Michigan University and look at their A to Z database list, you'll also see some from MeL. We have over 251 databases here at Eastern. And if it is coming from the Michigan E-Library, they will identify that pretty well. And most of your colleges will. And then if we get to, say, Western Michigan University, a little bit bigger, we have 612 databases, Michigan State, over 1,000 databases. And if your students are going to the University of Michigan, they will experience over 1,500 databases for their access. So really important that we are engaging with our students in database literacy and understanding different interfaces within these databases. Like I said, we only have 90 at the Library of Michigan. A little over 70 of those come from a vendor, EBSCO. And then we have Gale, Britannica, World Book, and A to Z. So we have a variety of vendors. Each of them has a different type of interface. So that is going to become a little more important as you're looking at databases with your students and how they are actually engaging with the different interfaces of these databases. So today in MEL, and we are going to mel.org. So if any of you want to open another tab in your browser and go ahead to mel.org, if you want to follow along, you can. And also I'd like to escape for just a second. I'm going to share this presentation in the chat box so that anyone who wants to follow along in that way, you are also welcome to do that. Hopefully I have shared it. If I haven't, please let me know. So on the MEL landing page, we're just going to look at these 3 locations: EResources, eJournals, and educators. And I also want to point out that on the landing page and in the notes of many of these slides, I have additional links and directional information. So definitely utilize this resource to go back to after today as we walk through these different databases. So on the landing page of MEL, and let me go ahead and open that. If we go into the EResources right here, which is where we're going to access all of our databases through EResources, we come to 3 different possibilities. We've organized a list, a default list of databases that public libraries are most often, public library patrons are most likely to use, and then K-12 school, the different resources that K-12 community would most likely use, and then we have all of the EResources A to Z over here on the right with a brief explanation of each of these. And then down at the bottom of the EResource page is this nice A to Z list, which will give you a nice link to the EResources if you already know the title of the resource. So with that, we are going to jump into our first EResource, which is eBooks. And so we're going to letter E under eBooks. We have 5 different ebook collections in eBooks. So we have the academic collection, the business, high school collection, the K-8 collection, and the public library collection. So if you want to search all of those collections, in addition to different ebook collections, smaller ones that are a part of other databases, you can actually go to this top link and search all of the different ebook collections at the same time. So that is also a possibility. For today's purposes, we are going to go into the ebook high school collection and take a look at the resources that are available in here for our students. I will say that these ebook collections were intended more for research purposes than for pleasure purposes. So when you're in the ebook collections, you're going to find about 70–75% nonfiction titles, as opposed to say 25 to 30% fiction titles. And that's kind of important to know. So if you're looking for classic literature, for example, you'll find a lot of literary review, a lot of literary criticism, but quite often you will not find the original text of that literary resource. So that's one thing to keep in mind. On the landing page in the ebook collections, you should have a visual carousel at the top and one at the bottom. This top carousel represents new books that have recently been added to the collection, so you're able to scroll through those and kind of see what new things have been added. And then the featured ebook collections, that comes out of this browse by category down the left-hand side. So as I advance the carousel here, I'm actually going down different topics that appear over to the left. And these are also new titles that have been added to those different categories. So this does give you a browsing tool, and consider that these are very representative of the types of books that you might see in your school library. You know, very reference oriented, going for research, information, trying to find information. We do have some fiction titles, even some popular fiction titles. So middle school teachers, you might be able to find, you know, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. We have the first 12 of those. The Big Nate series is in here. We also have illustrated classics for high school students. So that you are going to find some fiction, but really keep in mind that this is intended for research primarily. So this, you can use simple search. I will say that in the search bar on the landing page, you want to make sure that everything is spelled correctly. It is not as intuitive as Google when you're using the different search features in the different databases. So you want to make sure to spell correctly. And even though you can do the simple search, I recommend that you get yourselves and students in the habit of using the advanced search tool. So I'm going to go back to that page, and advanced search is right under the bar here. And that gives you what's called a Boolean operator. You can add fields to the Boolean operator, you can take them away. You have the ability to blend words by saying maybe like cats and dogs, cats or dogs, cats not dogs. So when you think about different ways to utilize this tool. Also on that landing page in the presentation that I shared with you, there is a 5 search strategies document, and that will tell you how to use this Boolean operator. So it's right in there on the slides. So for today, we're going to take a look at Civil War. If I were looking for a book on the Civil War, the first thing that I might recognize is that 421 books coming back on Civil War might be a bit large. So we have to start thinking about ways that we can narrow down our search in the ebook collection. So I might want to add American Civil War, because we'll find a lot of books that don't pertain to any kind of war that has happened in the United States. Or we could also put in United States Civil War, some way that we can narrow our search a little bit more. So think of keywords. Utilizing keywords is a big piece in both our elementary and middle school curriculum areas. So now we're down to 238 books on the Civil War. And I might even be interested in finding books that have to do with the Civil War and Michigan. So if we have any books in here at all on Civil War and Michigan, and we do have a couple that come up. Among the Enemy, a Michigan Soldier's Civil War Journal. That is the text that we are going to spend some time with. And first of all, I'd like to talk about some of the different tools that you see on this page. This is the same interface you're going to see in a lot of the databases that we have, because this comes from EBSCO. And so when we look at things like relevance, we can resort by date newest, we can sort by relevance. We can also share our results. So I might have that last screen with 238 books. I can come down here and grab this permalink, and it will save and allow me to share any of the books that I have in that list. So if you're using Google Classroom or Schoology or any of your school learning management systems, you can drop these persistent links in there so that students have the ability to connect to the exact same result list that you got when you did your search. So in this ebook, I can open it with the title, and that takes me to the detailed record page of the book. From this detailed record page, now I can access PDF or the EPUB version of the book. But if I go back one page, I can also open directly the PDF or the EPUB version. The difference between these two formats is that EPUB has an auto adjust feature in it. So if you're coming from a smaller device, EPUB is going to make that adjustment automatically. It's going to fit to your screen automatically, whatever the case may be. But PDF will be very static, and you'll have to force changes. So you'll have to increase text size, font size, or decrease. And you may also have to fit to screen in PDF. And there are more tools available to manipulate your screen in PDF than there are available in EPUB. So those are the two differences between those formats. So if I open the PDF directly from that result page, I can go into the book. And this is how it will open first. I'm just going to refresh. It seems to be loading slowly. And must be a lot of traffic out there online. There we go. So this is how it will land. And then down here in the bottom right are your toggle tools, and this is where they will locate to on the EPUB version. You'll just have fewer of them. So right now, if I want to make my book fit to screen, I just use this bottom 4 arrow point, and that allows my book to fit to screen. And then if I want to make it fit to page, so it's more book size, and I can advance pages in that way, I just click that second tool in here. So that's how I'm going to open my book. That's how I'm going to read my book. I can also make it smaller so that I can scroll through the book. So you have a few different options once you open it on how you want to look and read the book. When I want to leave the screen, I can just click escape and it takes me back to that first page. Okay, now when I'm on this site or this page, I can share this book in a couple of different ways. The first and foremost way that I want to share books is with permalinks. And I have to stop for a second and talk about permalinks because these are going to be really important when you're sharing resources from the Michigan eLibrary or any database virtually with your students. These permalinks are the only thing that's going to bring you back to this page. And in fact, if I change pages, let's say I want to go to the list of maps right here, my permalink's going to change. So if I save this permalink now, this is the page that students will see. Maybe I want them to open to chapter 7 on Fortress Rosecrans, then I would save my permalink now. So just know that every time you change the page of your permalink, the permalink itself changes. So if I want to share the whole book, I'm going to go back to the cover page and share the permalink to this book. If I go to the top up here and try and grab the URL, it has session data in it. So on the receiving end, it will be broken because it's only going to be good for this session. And that's why it's imperative if you see a permalink in any resource, make sure that is how you're saving the content. All of our resources will drop into, at the secondary level, they will all drop into any school management system with either a permalink or the URL. And the only time that you would use a URL is when there's not a permalink available. And that's just kind of the rule of thumb to remember with digital resources. If you're using Google Classroom, this is also especially easy because all you have to do is click on the little icon. And if you have your Google Classrooms already set up, then once I click that, I can choose my class. So I'm going to go to Anne's class. And then I can choose an action, for example, create an assignment, and then click go. And now all I have to do is title that. So among the enemy. Okay, so you title it, you can add some additional instructions if you choose, and then students will have a link directly to the book here at the bottom, and I can click assign. And now it's been posted to my class and I can view it, students can view it. So that's how we're going to use Google Classroom up here. If you do use Google Classroom or the permalink, that will live 24/7, 365, and students will have access. But if you're in eBooks and you choose to download, you can come over here and download by chapter. You can go up to the top right and do a full download, or you can download to Google Drive. All of those are options for downloading, and they're fine. And there are reasons that you might need to download to make these resources available for students in the short term. But if you do download now, they are only available for 28 days. So you're on a 28-day timer, and then they will no longer be accessible in the location where you've downloaded them. You are welcome to go back and re-download as many times as you want. And students can access all of these ebooks simultaneously. So you can have 30 people in a classroom accessing them all at the same time, either virtually or face-to-face. Additionally, when you're sharing out to students, I just want to mention that all of our IPs, let me say that again, all of our authentication is GeoIP authenticating. So you should be able to get into all of our resources if you are geographically seen as coming from in the state of Michigan. But as with all good things, there's always a little caveat to that, and that is, if you are using your phone as a hotspot, it will not see you as coming from a network in the state of Michigan. And this, you run into problems if you are putting a hotspot on a school bus and sending it out to a rural area to make sure your students have access. They are not going to be seen as coming from Michigan. They're not going to be on that school's network. So when that happens, you'll be prompted for secondary authentication. And you'll need either a Michigan driver's license or a public library card to access the resources if you're prompted for secondary authentication. All right, does anyone have any questions about that in particular? Authentication, permalinks, connecting to the resources? Okay, and I'm going to show a couple of last tools inside of eBooks before we move to the next resource, and that is the citation tool up here at the top. All of the resources in MeL for the secondary level have a minimum of 4 different citation. They are either MLA, APA, Harvard, or Chicago, so 4 different formats of citation in all of our resources, but some of our resources have additional citation formats available. And last, my favorite feature of eBooks is the search within feature. And if you've not used eBooks before, this is a fantastic tool. So if I want to say, look for Jackson, Michigan, anything that has to do with Jackson in this book, wherever that term that I type appears on a page in the book, it will show up with some context around it. And then I can just link directly to that page and it will highlight the term that I have put here at search within. So that's a really great feature of doing research in books, something that all of us, I'm going to assume ages now, all of us didn't have access to when we were in high school. So this is pretty amazing, and I love the search within feature of eBooks. All right, I am going to head out of eBooks. Any questions before we leave? Okay, I'm going to stop them, and we're going to head to our next e-resource. I'm going to the top of the page so we can remember how to get there. We clicked e-resources, and the next stop will be Explora. So I'm going back to letter E for our Explora resource. And you may have noticed that we've titled this EResources, and Explora is exactly the reason that we've titled it EResources rather than databases, because Explora is not a database. Explora is a tool that searches multiple databases, and any of the 70 plus databases that we have in EBSCO can be added or subtracted to your Explora. So all of your IP addresses in your schools are registered with our vendors. So if you contact MCLS, you contact us, we can just change the settings in here for your different Exploras. So you have the ability to add or subtract anything you like here. We're going to look at Explora for high school right now, but Explora for middle school searches, grade levels that are appropriate to middle school. So Middle Search Plus and the ebook K-8 collection, just like elementary searches primary search, where they're going to get content back like Ranger Rick and Ladybug and all of the elementary scholastic publications. Those are coming out of the primary search resource. Explora for high school, the primary search is going to be MAS Complete. This is a research database designed just for high school students, so their level. And then if you have some advanced students, AP students, I would recommend adding to our default list of Explora, I would add the Master File Complete, which is the equivalent of MAS Complete, only a little bit more mature than that. But I don't think that any student at that level would engage with anything that was inappropriate in any way. But to keep it safe, we have kept it very specific to those ages. So just know now we're going into Explora for high school and we're searching multiple databases. On the landing page in each of the Exploras, there is a bit of visual navigation content organized at the bottom of the pages. And some things like current issues, this might be a really great place for students to go to get ideas, to research any kind of debatable topic. This would be a nice place to go. But if you wanted to open just like e-waste and see what kinds of e-resources come up or resources come up under e-waste, there are 438 items. We have a couple of ebooks, 330 magazine articles, some trade publications, even some encyclopedia content. So that's the type of content that you're going to see when you hit those initial visual boxes on the landing page of Explora. But like I said before, always good to get in the habit of using the advanced search tool and going into the Boolean operator. So for our sake today, we're going to check out water and take a look at water in Michigan. So I can think right away of different ways that I can narrow this down. I could add Flint. I could say not Flint to see what kind of resources I would get back. So just know that you have some power as to how you're utilizing this resource here. Also, capitalization is not important in your searches, spelling is. So that's kind of something to remember with the Boolean operator. So if we do a search here, the types of resources again that I'm getting back, 3 ebooks, some academic journal articles on water in Michigan, magazines, primary source documents. Because we're searching databases such as History Reference Center, Science Reference Center, we're going to get a lot of content in primary sources here. So Explora is great for primary source documents, Britannica is great for primary source, and Gale in Context Opposing Viewpoints. Those are the 3 resources I recommend if you're searching for primary source documents. They can be very, very good and helpful. We're going to open the magazine facet. Before I do though, up here, I have information coming back on my results page from 1907 to 2020. So I can change the publication date range and say, you know what, I just really want to look for the last, we'll say 20 years at resources. So now I've narrowed just more recent content. So I'm going to open magazine articles. And now these are just the magazine articles that I have back from that search. Some of the resources that you're going to see in here, Time Magazine, The New Yorker, Junior Scholastic, Health and Human Rights, The New Scientist. Here's another Time Magazine, Natural Resources and Environment, and Scholastic Scope, just to give you an idea of the type of content that you will find in the high school Explora. We're going to take a look at the Toxic Legacy, the first article here. And again, just like the books, I can open it by title to get to the detailed record, or I can open it through HTML or PDF. Okay, a question from Jessica. Opposing Viewpoints, Britannica, and Explora. Those are the 3 best places to get primary source documents. Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So again, detailed record and Toxic Legacy. Or you can open the HTML and PDF. And again, we have differences in these formats. HTML gives us a little bit more accessibility with our students because you have text-to-speech functions in HTML and you have translation functions in HTML. But the PDF is that static document. It's exactly how it would have appeared in the magazine. So you really can't manipulate it any more than increasing and decreasing the font size. So we're going to open through the PDF first and look at Toxic Legacy. So here is the article. And over here to the left, when I open any article in PDF, the entire publication shows up here to the left. So I'm looking at the Time Magazine from April 22nd, 2019. And this particular article opens, but I can also look at any other article from that same publication. And I'm looking at article numbers here along the top and page numbers down along the right-hand side. So that's how I can look at this article. And like I said, it looks exactly like the article would have looked when it was published in Time Magazine. This is the PDF, and you only have 3 controls in PDF. You can fit it to screen, or you can increase and decrease the font in that way. If I want to share this article with my students, I have some different options. The first one is Google Classroom, and it works exactly like the ebooks. I just click that tool and it opens my classroom options. I can drop this article in Google Drive by just clicking the icon and doing nothing else. And it will tell you, please wait while you are redirected to Google. And now your document has been saved to your Google Drive account. So click OK. And then come back up here into your Drive and refresh it. And now that article is the most recent article that's been saved into your Drive. Also, whenever you're in These vendor databases, if you drop an article into Drive, they will build a folder for you. So not only did that appear as the most recent document added, but it was automatically organized in my EBSCO folder without me doing anything. And these are all alphabetized for you. So here it is, the same article, Toxic Legacy. It appears in that folder in alphabetical order. So a really, really easy resource to use when you want to share articles within any of the products that we have at MeL. So if I keep going down the list, Google Classroom, Google Drive, here's your print tool. So if I'm in the classroom, or even if students are working from home, keep in mind that this print tool prints what you see on the screen. If I want to print the article, I need to go to the print tool inside the document. So if you're in a PDF, make sure you're grabbing that print tool in the PDF. I can email this document by clicking the email button and just fill in the different fields and click send. I have citation tools available. Whoops, let me go one more down. These are my different formats for citations. So I'm going to have APA, MLA, Chicago, and Harvard in here. And then I also have the ability, if you're a media specialist here, you can export MARC records with the export tool at the bottom. And then finally, the permalink. So let me just move that. If you want to share this article in a learning management system and you're not using Google Classroom, maybe you are using Schoology, you can take this permalink and copy the permalink and paste it and share it. And again, this should be accessible from all your for all your students, whether they're working remotely or in the classroom. If I want to take a look at the HTML version of this same article, I click down here on HTML. And I wish I could say that every one of our articles is in both PDF and HTML, but that is not the case. Some publishers only allow them out in PDF and others do HTML and many do both, but it's kind of hit or miss with the different publishers that this vendor subscribes to. So here is that same article, and this gives us that slightly more accessibility to it. So I can come up here and I can choose the language and have it translate. So if I want to translate it into, we'll say Spanish, I just select the language that I want it to translate in, and now it will translate it. And that's a fantastic feature, but now if I grab permalink or use Drive or Classroom, just know that you cannot save this feature or send it off in this language. You can only share these in their original language. So if you wanted to share this, you would physically have to copy and paste it in the translated version in order for it to be in that language. So I'm going to go back to the original language. And the other accessibility feature here is the listening tool. If I come down here and I just press the play button, it will start reading right from the very beginning.
Full text.
And then it will read every single word you see going down the page. But maybe you don't want it to read from the beginning, you just want it to read a sentence or two. So you can highlight the sentence you want read, and that listening tool opens up over here to the left, so you can just have it read that one paragraph.
Story appeared. Hawk moved sincere ender.
So those are some nice features when you have the HTML, and it's always ideal when the document is coming to you in both PDF and HTML version, but that is not always the case. If I drop this in Google Drive, it's going to save in Google Drive in its original version, which is typically the PDF. So just know that you're not going to get a lot of these tools when you are dropping it from here into Drive. So HTML, a little bit different than PDF. All right, any questions about Explora before we move to the next resource? Okay, going to close that resource. And we'll go back to the top of the page. I'm just going to refresh it one time, and we'll go to EResources. And now we're heading down to Britannica. And Britannica is not the encyclopedia you remember as a child. This is an incredibly rich resource. And this is the other resource that has a lot of really good primary source documents for you and your students to find. And we have 4 different landing platforms. You can always have Britannica School, which will give you access to elementary, middle, and high. This would be great for a K-12 building if you're adding this resource to a common site like a library webpage or a building webpage or even a classroom webpage. But we also have other portals, and essentially you're getting to all the same information. You're just getting there with different landing pages. So if I open Britannica Middle School, this would be the landing page that students would see. And it has some incredible features. I was looking at some middle school content, and one thing that it talks about is interpreting what was happening in time based on images. And I know I just summarized that very simplistically. But if you enter here through articles or images and videos, and we'll go through images and videos, then you're given a list of content choices that will take you to another list, and it will break it down and break it down. So we'll go here to history, and then you can look for ancient world, Middle Ages, global exploration. We'll go into modern world. And then I have more options. Do I want the Afghan War, the Civil Rights Movement? Yep, we'll go there. And now I have 109 images and video clips that have to do with civil rights. So when I come down here, you can see if it's a video, if it has a little play button, and then if it doesn't, it's an image. So if I go to this image of Jesse Jackson, now I am given all of these different tools. And these will all work the same no matter how you're getting to the image and video inside of Britannica, but they will all work the same. So here you're going to see a copy link. So this is a link. It is not necessarily the same as a permalink. So I would need to copy that. So I'm going to copy link. Make sure that copies. Okay, copy link. And then I can come up here and open that video in my browser. And this is what you would see, and this is what students would see if you were sharing that link. But Britannica is a kind of unique resource because it doesn't have the same type of permalinks that our EBSCO and Gale databases has. So instead of just going there, it is possible that when students get this link, if they're working from home, that they will get a username password prompt for Britannica, the resource Britannica. To get around that, all they have to do is go into MEL and open Britannica one time to save those cookies to their computer, and all of these links in Britannica will work. So that is what's different about Britannica than EBSCO and Gale. It's going to be the URL that is your link, but you might have to open the resource one time to save cookies. Once you're in images and videos, you can just advance and look through the different images and videos in this way. And they're all going to save the same. You'll see similar tools that we've seen. We can email this resource, this image. I have citation resource here, 4 different formats in Britannica. I can drop this image or video into my Google Classroom by clicking Classroom, and it will give me the same type of prompt that I've seen in the other 2 resources. So that is one way to utilize the Britannica resource, and truly one, because there are so many. I'm going to click Britannica School to go back to that landing page. And now if I wanted to go through middle, you can see that the landing page is going to be exactly the same. So if you scroll down, you'll see a few more items on this landing page, and they always have featured primary source documents. So the kind of the big ones, if you're ever looking for the top hitters, they're going to be listed here on the landing page in Britannica. And that's true of both the middle school landing page and the high school landing page in Britannica. I can also use the search bar to do simple searches like Michigan. And here it's displaying the content at the middle school level, but you can also jump to the high school level or the elementary level from this page too to get corresponding information to that grade. So we were in level 2, the middle school level, and it will default to all of your articles. So if I open the article Michigan, now I can go in here and I have, first of all, a double-click dictionary. So if I don't know what the term exploited means, I can double-click that word, and students are given the part of speech, the pronunciation, and an audio tool to listen to the words spoken. And then they also have the translation in Spanish.
And you had a quick question.
Yeah, thank you, from Janelle. However, is there any sort of limit to the number of people? No, there is no limit to access on the different resources. It should be as many people as it will, I've never heard of any limitations, so I don't think that that is an issue. We've never heard of that, so that's a great thing. So good. So we have this double-click dictionary in here. Other tools are also at the top when you're in articles. So this is a feature of the article section. So I can send it to email, Classroom, or Drive. The star is if you want to build an account in Britannica and save your favorite searches or articles or images, whatever the case may be. So you can build an account in any of the resources. If you want to print the article, here's your citation for the article and your different formats. You have a translation tool inside of Britannica that gives you over 40 different languages. And then you have a listening tool so students can read the entire article or listen to the entire article from the beginning. And then you can increase or decrease the font when you're in the articles. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this landing page one more time. And we'll go to middle. And then we'll put in our Michigan search again. And now you can see we have images related only to Michigan at the middle school level. We have videos appropriate to the level 2, a dictionary, magazines, and you can see over here these are coming from EBSCO, but this is a different subscription than what the Michigan E-Library has to EBSCO. So you'll find different magazine articles in here than you would necessarily find in the last product we looked. So Web's Best Sites is a great resource because what they've done is they've vetted these links to different resources regarding Michigan, and they've done it by the different grade levels, elementary, middle, or high school. So these are going to be age-appropriate online resources for students to do more investigation on the topic. And then lastly, the primary source documents and ebooks that are available on this search are available inside of Britannica. I know that was a very quick overview of Britannica School. Are there any questions at all about Britannica? Okay, I am going to show one more thing regarding Britannica before we move on, and that is the Chrome extension. So you have to be using the Chrome browser for this to work, but you can come in here and, whoops, you can type in your search term this way. And when you do type in a term, if there is corresponding information in Britannica and you've added the Chrome extension, you can just click here and it will take you directly into the Michigan E-Library's Britannica School. So this is a nice, easy feature, easy to add. All you have to do is go to the Chrome store, type in Britannica, and then it is the first one listed. If you want to remove it, you just click in the gray box and you can remove that from Chrome. So really easy to add any kind of extension in Chrome. I love Chrome extensions too. Screencastify is my new favorite, but Chrome extensions, the Britannica tool is extraordinary because honestly, you can be searching for anything like Kelly Clarkson, for example, and there's a page from Britannica on that. I could be searching for a ruby, like the stone, the gemstone, and it's in there. So just kind of keep in mind that this is a phenomenal resource and it has an incredible extension. So really happy about that. Okay, we are heading off to our next resource, which is the Learning Express library. And so we're going to click EResources. Come on down to letter L, and this is the resource, the only resource in MEL where you have to use a username password to access all of the content, but that's very intentional because a lot of the content in here can be saved. I'm going to X out of this notice for COVID. And when you land here, you are, oh, it needs to be refreshed. Pardon me 1 second while I leave and come back from that. Learning Express times out relatively quickly if you've had MEL open in your browser for 15 minutes or more. Quite often you'll see that there seems to be something unusual happening here naturally. So let me log into Learning Express and I'm going to go to the home page. And so when you are accessing Learning Express, you're getting to 3 different platforms, and that's because we have 3 separate subscriptions to the Learning Express library. We have a public library, a college library, and a high school library subscription. The high school library is really intended for grades 5th through 12th grade. There will be content in here for even a lot of our middle school students because there's a lot of skill resources trying to improve skills, skill building type things. I'm going to kind of just show you some of the highlights of what's in the high school platform. High school platform of the Learning Express library. So over here you have the Prepare for College. So you have all this ACT, PSAT, SAT prepped, all of the AP tests, and oftentimes there are not just one, or is not just one practice test, but multiple practice tests for each of these topics. And I will say there were 3 new AP test prep added this winter, and all of the other resources were updated to make sure they represent what is new and most current with the College Board. So that's a really great place for test prep. And that is the reason that you have to log into Learning Express Library, because if I'm in a test prep and I only get maybe a quarter of the way through, Learning Express will hold your spot so you can go back and finish where you left off. So test prep is one of the big resources. And then other math and science, English, social studies, skills center, and then the computer skills center here. We have free courses that people can take inside. So if you want to take the 2016 Excel course, I think it was about 6 hours long. The instructor was out of Chicago. She was really great, very dynamic, a lot of inflection. She kept your interest, especially given the fact it was an Excel course. So these are really great courses that you can take, and they run anywhere from 2 to 10 hours in length. So a lot of really, I think everything's here but publisher and how to do it. But you can also do some other things in here. You can get started with your computer. So computer safety and maintenance. And maybe many of our students right now are having, for the first time, a computer in their homes. So that might be a great resource for them to utilize. Or just getting started with the internet, social media tools, internet safety, how to use an email. And I, even only a few years ago as a high school media specialist, I can remember many 9th and 10th graders struggling to use an email. For a lot of our students, that's a foreign concept. So we also have Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, and understanding your operating system. If Windows 10 is new to them, this might be a good place to go and learn more about Windows 10. So I'm going to go back to the home, and we were in the Computer Skills Center at the bottom. But the one resource I really want to spend a few minutes on is in here, the Job and Career Accelerator. A lot of great things. There's a scholarship finder in here. I think there are over 2,500 scholarships if you're a resident in Michigan that you have access to. You can do searches about the best college based on your interests, or you can just search colleges and it will give you all kinds of data about that college. You know, the library holdings are in there, the different majors and minors, how many students are receiving financial aid, what the average ACT score is of that college, or average SAT score. So just all kinds of information, demographic information about the makeup of that school. So a lot of good information there. And then up here, this Explora Occupations, I have to say, is pretty extraordinary, and they spent a lot of time updating it. So if you access our educator guide, the LEX page, the Learning Express library page that we have in there is very outdated already, and we just published it less than a year ago because they have added this Explore Occupations, and they've put in video occupation cards for every occupation you can imagine. So I'm just going to go into this in-demand occupations here. We had 4 choices. Inevitably, they'll all take you back to the same list. But at the top here, I can open and search by keyword for an occupation, or I can come down here to in-demand occupations and select an industry group. So we'll just go ahead and select mining, oil, and gas. And then maybe we'll take a look at derrick operators in oil and gas. So I'll click there. And like I said, every occupation has this really great video card that can be both embedded or linked. And it has closed captioning in it for additional accessibility.
Oil drill operations rely on the use of derricks for their production.
and everyone can see a person working in that field in these video cards. So they're pretty exceptional. Then you can see wages and trends in different locations. And again, this is, I feel like if I refresh, it should work. And of course it was working right up until 3 o'clock without an issue. And now everything seems to be tumbling a little bit, but let me see if I can refresh just that page. Okay. Nope. Normally these would all be filled in, but I have to say, Michigan only reports average salary. You'll never see these other 3 fields filled in Michigan. And then because that's not working, probably the jobs needs a refresher too. Something seems to be happening with this resource today. So you have education and training to do that job, related occupations, the tools and technology that you would need to use on the job, all kinds of different things. And then they always have available jobs and they're always listed right here and very current. Oftentimes when I'm sharing this resource, I will be looking at things that were posted 3 minutes ago, 8 minutes ago. So again, I think this is just a refresh issue with Learning Express, but these Explora occupations are really, really great. Okay, so I have a few things in the chat box. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Excel 2007. Nice, Janelle. Good. Okay, I'm going to go back here to the landing page. And we talked about EResources. We've been in the EResources link. Just to speak for a moment to the educator link, if you open educators, what this is, it's all of our EResources organized by grade level and curriculum area, so the discipline that you teach. So if you open the curriculum resources, you can see all of the resources that we say have for science. They will default to a K-5 list, but you can go to 912. And even though this is a nice location to see where all of the different resources are organized, the intention here is to take the resource and move it to your own website. So that's why this is listed. So there's information given on how to add this resource to a Weebly or to a Google site. And what you're really doing is building a button. So you can come down here and grab the HTML, and anywhere that you can embed HTML, you can add these buttons. So if I copy this, I'm adding the button, but you don't have to add the button. You can also add just a direct link behind images or text. And remember, you always want to add the GeoIP. Always add GeoIP so they have access at home. Down the left here, help and training. We do have 5 EduPass courses that have been published, and we're working on number 6. Number 6 is going to be social studies 6 through 12. But we do have career and college readiness, college and military prep also in the EduPass courses. And then a 28-page educator guide to kind of just introduce the different databases and how they might be used in your classroom. Our MEL Minute is a weekly blog of everything that has to do with the EResources. And then down here, professional learning resources, there are 7 databases that support teachers just on your own learning. So those would give you access there. And finally, the last thing, and I know we're right at the end, but I do want to share the eJournal portal because eJournals is exceptional. This is how you can access free magazines and academic journals and newspapers that we have in our databases. So of the 90 databases, all of those magazines and academic journals and newspapers are indexed behind here. So for example, People Magazine, and I pull this one up because everyone is pretty familiar with People Magazine. This is free. Everyone in the state can access it. These are the 4 databases that have a subscription to People Magazine. So I can click on the first database. And if I want to see the most recent article or most recent issue of People, I can come over here to September. So Monday, this coming Monday, September 7th, this is the Monday issue of People Magazine. And now I can just open PDF or HTML, and I'll just open the first article in People. And if you want to browse through the different articles, again, you can just go right down the list and the entire publication opens. And then if I want to go to articles 6 through 10, I can open 6 through 10 this way and articles 11 through 15, and you get the idea. I'm going to do one more search, and we're going back to the eJournal portal on the landing page. And this time I am going to go into educational leadership. which nearly every administrator in the state subscribes to, or Phi Delta Kappan. Whoops, sorry. There we go. And the reason I'm showing this one, not to just bring it into academia, but also this is to show how else you can utilize eJournals. So I could come over here to the most recent issue of Ed Leadership, summer 2020, or I can come over and search within this publication. So now I'm forced to do an advanced search. And then if I come up here, I would have to type in, and I'm using quotation marks when I use 2 or more terms. So if I'm looking for articles on digital literacy, we'll say, and I do a search, it only finds 8 articles from 1990 to 2014. Again, I can use this tool, but I have all of these different resources. And I did notice that Ed Leadership, as they got a little bit more current, they were using both HTML and PDF. And then I can resort these by date newest and then open them that way. So with your students, this might be a good idea if you came into here and say they were doing looking for Ranger Rick or Ranger Rick Jr. And maybe you wanted, your students were looking for something specific. Maybe in Ranger Rick, they wanted to find an article right from there about polar bears. And we have 25 articles from Ranger Rick on polar bears, and it's just the Ranger Rick publication. So a lot of different tools in here in MeL to help all of us. And before I walk away from this, on the final page, if those of you who have stayed with us would mind filling out today's evaluation, I would very much appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.